Okay, finishing off the seats. So the fronts, as I showed you before, will bolt just straight through the original mounts with the spacers removed. The rears, because this is practically sitting on the penthouse, well, the old penthouse cover, the top of the battery, I'm spacing them up so I can actually get something underneath. And obviously I need to get an amount of thread depth below the mount. So you can see both sides, passenger side, and then that's where it sits in the car. So what I'm thinking is build a little frame that comes down here, mounts to there with like a cross piece for the two middles, and the sides will go straight onto this. Remember, this is multiple layers, nice thick stuff. So that'll have a little protruding mount with captive nuts. Okay, and there's the centre mount structure welded up. Obviously I wanted it removable so I can get into the, well, what was the penthouse and get to the pyro fuse, but nice and chunky, good bit of protection. Might be able to put some mounts on it for a new narrowed centre console as well. Okay, so that's both seats fully fixed. See my centre sort of spine bit bolted in, and then I was able to just do some very simple brackets on the strengthened sill bit that I did before. So that's looking good, and it gives a nice amount of clearance to the body. So on to the next job, trying to get the radiator in. So ideally I'll have it sitting behind the shotguns, these main sort of structural beams that go through the front, because that's where the body's tightest as it comes down. So what I think, so I've chopped these original mounts off the rear plastic case. So the radiator just gets sandwiched between the rear and the front. So if I can leave it in the rear and then fit the front later, which I'm going to have to cut up and redo anyway, because that intake pretty much sits on the bottom of this part of the body. So what I'm thinking is if I can make up some brackets from the rear shroud, and then the radiator will literally just slot into it. So it slots in on one side with these tangs, and then locates into those, and then the front section clicks in, yeah, onto these two through these holes here. So they're the main bits I've got to keep, and the front section actually has all these clips as well. I might actually get rid of some because they're a pain to pry up all at the same time to take the front off. But yeah, so I've got the original cross brace brackets there, so I think at least for the lower mounts I should be able to come off those, and that's it. Yeah, it just about clears the steering rack motor there, the fan. So I've got things balancing to try and get it roughly in the right position. Yeah, not too bad a job, I don't think. It'll probably be lower from where it is now because I've just clamped this bit of steel on just for the moment. But okay, I think I'm having second thoughts with the radiator. Ignore all the loose wiring. The standard top mount, this normally goes way down there. Don't know if you can see the bracket, but that sits underneath the frunk on the Model 3, so it's very low, and then sucks in from the bottom of the bumper. As that stands, that could work quite nicely, as long as it doesn't get the way of the grille, and obviously I'll have to work out a way of mounting the radar and keeping enough space above for the bonnet latch. And I won't be able to run the crash bar like that. I suppose I could run a smaller one underneath. That might be the best option. More thinking, but that was almost too easy. There were some brackets already here that weren't being used anymore. So it's literally a 2-inch extension strip on each side. It's just annoying now that I've cut the original lower mounts off, so I could have used those. Oh well. Okay, so that's the center console stripped down. At least for the moment, down to the essentials. Well, essentials, that's a USB hub. And that is the card reader and sort of central, what do they call it? Security controller central. So yes, that'll be needed, I guess, for the proximity of my phone for starting and things. I don't think I'm going to bother using that phone dock. Never really worked with my phone for some reason. And it's obviously a bit wide, so yeah. At least I can plug that in independently while I think about what I want to do for a console. But yeah, I'll probably keep the 12-volt socket, they're always handy. That's the first drive. Okay, so I thought it was time to take it out of service mode and get the software all updated. So hence plugging the headlights in. So I've got an ECU module that needs updating. I did switch over the brake switch to the Honda one, but the Tesla doesn't like it and thinks there's low brake fluid and all sorts of warnings and makes you press drive twice. So I initially mocked up that bracket to take the Honda one. The sensors don't really seem compatible between the two reservoirs, so I'm going to have to make up some sort of adapter to take the Tesla reservoir and keep it obviously with the sensor and put it in that sort of position. It's going to be fiddly. But I happen to have this Honda master cylinder that came with the reservoirs, so I think I'll chop it up and TIG weld some bits back together. That should do the job. That's probably my next thing to do. I've also decided I'm not going to fix any of the body positioning just yet. I'm going to wait for the air suspension to arrive. But it seems to have come down a bit. So I've taken all spaces, so the body's literally just sitting on the chassis. I did have the rear spaced up on top of the arches by about 1 inch. Because my original idea was to have the top of the tyres flush with the bottom of the eyebrows. But I think a lot of them, and then this sill trim sort of goes through the middle of the wheels, but the way that is slightly angled down doesn't work. So I'm just going to wait until I've got the air, set it where I want the chassis, and then put the body where I want it. But obviously dropping the rear very quickly starts affecting the passenger head height. And what I do have to remember is that I've got the inner skin You see one stuck at the back there. It's quite thick, obviously, because it needs to have the strength. Yeah. And for some reason, even though I've set the chassis to the specs, the wheel seems to be sitting a bit close to the back in the arch when the front is sort of centered. It could probably go back a little bit. I'll have to check some pictures of originals, but having said that, the length of the eyebrow there above the arch is quite different side to side. So I guess these are all handmade cars, so all different anyway. And then looking at that, actually that's not too bad. Just looking at the sill height, because I've got the separate panel to go on there. Even with so that's as low as the back is ever going to go, and there's still a slight downward taper. But then the originals did kick up a little bit at the front, so maybe that is about right. I'll just have to see if I can live with the interior head height. Okay, as I don't have machining facilities, that's the Honda master cylinder, and I drilled through to make sure the ports are all connected and just welded that bit of plate over the input. So obviously the reservoir can mount as normal on the top, and then I've got some screw-in ports on the side. I'll probably end up just blocking one off, and the other one can feed to the little stubby takeoff, the original Honda takeoff that I've fitted to the Tesla master cylinder. Okay, so I've been doing a bit more fettling underneath the bonnet just to get the clearance so it'll sit fully down, and it does now. So you can see that sort of curvature at the top of the bonnet around here. It really does help. So what I've done is just trim the heater or the HVAC intake down. Not actually very much, as you can see, and that's at least for the moment, the original master cylinder reservoir relocated, so we'll get the switch working without loads of errors. I've lined it up to fit within that sort of bulge in the bonnet, so it's about as high as it can go. If I need to go a bit higher, I can flip it around the other way, but it's just for the moment a little bent bracket coming off the bulkhead. Existing mount was nice and easy.